play worship guitar. In this video, I wanted to give you a basic introduction to scales and how you can use them in your lead guitar playing. Scales aren't just important for soloing, they also help to give you a better understanding of the relationship between notes on the fretboard and just fretboard navigation in general. So let's get started with the major scale. A scale starts with the note that it's named after. So the C major scale starts with C as the bass note. You can play the C major scale in any song that's in the key of C major. Including the bass note, a scale consists of 7 notes. It's not super important that you remember the names of all the notes, but it is helpful to have some familiarity with the intervals between notes in the scale. All the notes are either a half step, which is 1 fret, or a full step, which is 2 frets, from the next note in the scale. So I'm editing this video and I just realized that I forgot to mention something. So it can also be helpful to remember the number of each note in the scale. So the root note is the 1, and then it just goes up from there, the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then the 8 is just the octave of the 1, so it's just a higher C in this case. That's all. For me, the easiest way to remember scales is to remember shapes on the fretboard. So let's take a look at the fretboard. Here are all the notes in the C major scale on the whole neck. That's a lot, so let's just focus on one section of that to simplify things for now. We'll call this position 1. Other people might call this position by a different number, but I just call it position 1 because that's the first one I think about when I'm thinking about scales. It's nice to split up scales on the fretboard by position because we can pretty much play the whole scale in this position without sliding our hand on the neck. Position 1 gives us 3 notes on each string except for the D string where there are only 2 notes. There's a simplified way to play any scale that's called the pentatonic scale. Pentatonic means 5 tones, so basically we're taking out 2 notes of the 7 notes that are normally in our scale. We're going to take out the 4 and the 7, so now there are only 2 notes on each string in position 1. To give us a little more flexibility without having to remember much more, there's a little extension we can tack on to the end of this scale position. It's just 3 additional frets, but you can really do a lot with this little bit of extra space. This also applies to the full scale, not just the pentatonic. So now you know how to play a C major scale, but what if you want to play a D major scale? Well, all you have to do is slide the whole position up 2 frets until your bass note is on the D on the low E string. It's really that simple. Let's move on to our next position. We'll call this position 2, and we'll stick with the C major scale just to keep things consistent. Notice as we transition from position 1 to position 2 that they're connected by 2 notes, the bass note on the low E string and the 4 on the A string. Remembering this connection will help you transition from position 1 to position 2 more easily, no matter what scale you're playing. Again, this position just slides up or down the neck depending on what key you're playing in. So this position has 3 notes per string, and the repeating pattern makes it pretty easy to remember. You You can add an easy extension to this one too, and it might look familiar. And this just helps to bridge the gap between position 2 and the same shape as position 1, but an octave up the neck. So that pretty much covers the basics of the major scale, but when we want to have fun, we play in a minor key. Luckily, pretty much everything we talked about still applies to the minor key. The notes and shapes are the same, but the only thing that changes is where the bass note lives in those shapes. Instead of the bass note being the third note on the low E string in position 1, now it's the first note on the low E string. So using the exact same notes we used for the C major scale, now we can play an A minor scale. Like I said, pretty much everything from earlier still applies, so we can simplify this into a minor pentatonic scale and also add the easy extension. We can also move it up to position 2, just like we did with the major scale. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I really hope it helps you with your lead guitar playing. I'm going to be making more video tutorials like this one connected to this one, so be sure to keep an eye out for those. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.